The mic is hot. Let's break this down. He actually said it. I mean, not in so many words, but the check he just signed speaks louder than any rally speech ever could. A bridge. That is what they are calling it. A $12 billion bridge. If you turn on the news right now, if you listen to the press secretaries and the talking heads in the spin room, they are popping champagne. They are telling you this is victory. They're framing this as a bonus for the Heartland, a reward for loyalty, a dividend of the great economic reset. They want you to believe that the White House just handed American farmers a winning lottery ticket. Don't buy it. Do not let them gaslight you on this one. Because you don't build a bridge if you're standing on solid ground. You build a bridge when the ground beneath your feet has collapsed and you are trying desperately not to fall into the abyss. Let's be real for a second. Let's look at the paper trail. Monday, December 8th, the White House quietly unveils this package. $12 billion. And here's the receipt. The part they hope you are too busy scrolling TikTok to notice. They're pulling this money from the Commodity Credit Corporation. That is a Depression-era slush fund designed for emergencies. Emergencies. $11 billion of that is going straight to row crop farmers. Soybeans, corn, wheat. Why? Ask yourself, why? It's not because the harvest was bad. It's not because of a drought or a flood or a swarm of locusts. It's because the customers are gone. We picked a fight, a trade war that was supposed to be easy to win, and the other side didn't just fold, they stopped buying. China, our biggest customer for soybeans, just closed the wallet. Again. So now the administration is using your tax dollars to pay farmers for the losses caused by the administration's own policies. Make it make sense, please. It is a circular firing squad disguised as economic policy. We punch the farmer in the gut with tariffs, then we hand him a bag of ice, paid for by the taxpayer, and expect him to say, thank you? And the worst part, this isn't a solution. It's hush money. It is a $12 billion Band-Aid on an artery that is spurting blood. And you might be sitting there in a condo in Miami or an apartment in Seattle thinking, well, I'm not a farmer, so this is just politics. Wrong. This is your grocery bill. This is the stability of the global food supply. This is the signal that the master plan is backfiring in real time. When the government has to print money to bribe an entire industry to stay alive because the free market has been legislated out of existence, we are not in a boom. We are in a rescue mission. And nobody in D.C. wants to admit it. They're hoping the check clears before you realize what this actually means for next year. But we're not going to let them slide. We are going to look at the numbers, the timing, and the terrifying reality of what happens when the bridge runs out.
Because bridges end. And if there is no road on the other side, you just drive off a cliff. Let me show you exactly how deep this hole goes. Okay, we need to rewind. To really understand why a $12 billion check is being written in December of 2025, you have to understand what the world looked like before we decided to set the table on fire. Because there was a time, and I'm talking recent history, not ancient history, when the American farmer was the undisputed king of the global grocery aisle. You go back a decade, even 5 years, and the equation was simple. We grow it, the world dies it. The soil in Iowa, in Illinois, in Nebraska, it is gold, literally. We have the best logistics, the best technology, and the highest yields on the planet. For decades, the deal was straightforward. The American farmer takes on the risk of the weather, plants the seed, and come harvest time, ships massive amounts of protein and grain to booming markets in Asia, Europe, and Mexico. It wasn't charity, it was business. Good business. The U.S. agriculture sector was one of the few places where we actually had a trade surplus. We weren't buying their food, they were buying ours. China, specifically, was buying 60% of our soybeans. 60%. Think about that. If you are a business owner and one customer buys 60% of your inventory, you treat that customer carefully. You might not like them, you might not trust them, but you recognize that they keep the lights on. That was the before. Then came the strategy. And look, I'm not here to debate the merits of protectionism in a vacuum. I get the theory, I get the anger. They're ripping us off. They steal our IP. They manipulate their currency. Valid points, all of them. But here is the catalyst, the moment the music stopped.
It wasn't just the election. It was the implementation of Tariffs 2.0 earlier this year. The administration doubled down. They slapped aggressive, across-the-board tariffs on Chinese imports, promising that this time it would bring Beijing to its knees. They told us we have all the leverage. They told us trade wars are good and easy to win. But here's the thing about leverage. It only works if the other guy doesn't have a weapon too. China didn't kneel. They didn't beg. They did exactly what they did in 2018, but they did it faster and they did it harder. They stopped buying overnight. They canceled orders. They let shipments sit at the docks. They turned to Brazil. They turned to Argentina. They started sourcing from anywhere but here. And suddenly, the price of U.S. soybeans plummeted. Corn followed. Sorghum collapsed. So now we're staring at the fallout, and this is where the gaslighting gets heavy, so stay with me. I know what you're thinking. I can hear the comment section already. But wait, the president said the tariffs are bringing in billions. He said China is paying us. Why can't we just use that money to help the farmers? Stop. That is the straw man. That is the line they feed you to keep you calm. Let's bust this myth once and for all. China does not pay the tariffs. The U.S. importer pays the tariffs. When a company like Walmart or Target brings in goods from China, they pay the tax to U.S. Customs. And then guess what? They pass that cost on to you. You pay the tariff. It's a sales tax on the American consumer. It is a wealth transfer from your pocket through the government bureaucracy to the farmer, just to keep the farm from foreclosing. And let's look at the data, real data, not the glossy flyers from the USDA. They are throwing $11 billion at row crops. Why that number? Because the losses are catastrophic. We're not talking about a 5% dip in profits. We're talking about the difference between solvency and bankruptcy. Input costs for farmers, diesel, fertilizer, seed, are up 20, 30, 40% because of inflation and, you guessed it, tariffs on raw materials. So it costs more to plant the seed. Then, when they harvest, the market price is in the toilet because the biggest buyer, China, left the chat. So you have high costs and low prices. In any other industry, that is called going out of business. In any other industry, the market would correct. But we can't let our food supply go out of business. We can't have the heartland turned into a dust bowl. So the administration panics. They know the midterms are coming. They know the rural base is the only thing holding their coalition together. They can't afford televised foreclosure auctions in Iowa. So they activate the CCC, the Commodity Credit Corporation. This is the credit card of the USDA. It allows them to borrow up to $30 billion from the Treasury without going to Congress for permission. It's a blank check for stabilization. And on December 8th, they maxed out that credit card again. But here is the kicker. Here is the part that should make your blood run cold. They're selling this $12 billion as a bridge. Secretary Bessent, President Trump, they're all using that word. It's a bridge to a better deal. It's a bridge until the tariff revenue kicks in. A bridge implies you're crossing over something temporary, a river, a valley. But what if the river is getting wider?
What if the better deal isn't coming? China isn't sitting around waiting for us to calm down. They're building new supply chains. They're investing billions in African agriculture. They're signing long-term contracts with Brazil. They're designing a world where they never have to buy a single bushel of soy ever again. We're not building a bridge to a new trade deal. We're building a pier. We're building a bridge that goes halfway across the ocean and then just stops. And giving a farmer a check for 1 year of losses doesn't fix the fact that his customer is gone forever. It's like paying someone's salary for a year after you fired them, but forbidding them from looking for a new job. It creates a zombie industry, dependent on the state, unable to compete, waiting for the next handout. And they want you to applaud. They want you to see the headline, $12 billion for farmers, and think, oh, good, he's taking care of them. No, he's paying hush money to the victims of his own economic war. And the scariest part? This $12 billion is just the down payment. Because if the trade war doesn't end, and it won't, not with the egos involved here, then next year they're going to need another $12 billion, and the year after that. We are walking into a trap where the U.S. government, not the market, decides who farms and who fails. But surely there's a plan, right? Surely they have a strategy to get those markets back.
Well, that's what I wanted to know. So I dug into the Phase 2 proposals. I looked at the actual trade documents being circulated in Geneva. And that's when I realized they don't have an exit strategy. They only have an escalation strategy. Let me explain the mechanism of how this actually breaks the system, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. You want to know how this actually works? Forget the macroeconomics textbooks, forget the acronyms. Let's bring this down to a neighborhood level. Imagine you run a pizza shop. You make the best pepperoni pizza in town. Your biggest customer is the guy across the street, Mr. Wu. He buys 60% of your pizzas every Friday night. It pays your rent, your staff, and your electric bill. Now, imagine your landlord, let's call him Uncle Sam, gets into a fist fight with Mr. Wu over a parking spot. It gets ugly. Uncle Sam slashes Mr. Wu's tires. In retaliation, Mr. Wu says, "I am never buying a pizza from this building again." Suddenly, your Friday night orders drop to 0. You are panicking. You can't pay rent. So, Uncle Sam walks in and says, "Don't worry, kid, I got you. I'm going to pay you for every pizza Mr. Wu didn't buy." You breathe a sigh of relief. You take the cash, you keep the lights on. But here's the catch. Where did Uncle Sam get that cash? He raised your rent. That is the mechanism. That is exactly what is happening right now with the Commodity Credit Corporation and these tariffs. The administration is breaking your legs and then handing you a crutch that you paid for and expecting you to praise them for their generosity. The catch-22. And this is where the incompetence turns into a trap. This is the catch-22 that keeps Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent up at night staring at the ceiling. They are stuck. They are completely, totally stuck. If they drop the tariffs now, they look weak. They admit that the trade war was a failure. They admit that China won the staring contest. Politically, for a strongman presidency, that is suicide. They cannot fold. But if they keep the tariffs, the farmers continue to bleed. The bankruptcies pile up. The rural base, the people who actually vote for them, starts to revolt. So they have to choose. Look weak to the world or look incompetent to their voters. They chose option C. Print money. They are using the CCC to paper over the crack, but the crack is getting wider every single day. They are trying to bail out a boat that has a hole in the hole, but instead of plugging the hole, they are just buying bigger buckets. I know how crazy this sounds. I wish I was making this up. I wish I was just being dramatic for the algorithm, but I'm not. You have to understand that we are watching the deliberate zombification of the American agriculture sector. We are watching the most efficient capitalist engine in the world, the American family farm, being turned into a ward of the state. We are teaching farmers not to look at the market signals. We are teaching them to look at the government signals. Don't plant what sells, plant what qualifies for the bailout. That is not capitalism. That is central planning. And history tells us exactly how that ends. So, what happens next? Let's knock over the dominoes. Because this $12 billion isn't just sitting in a silo. It moves. Domino 1, the inflationary spike.
You inject $12 billion of unearned cash into the rural economy. Farmers use that money to buy new tractors, new trucks, new fencing. That demand pushes prices up. Inflation in the ag sector spikes. Domino 2, the interest rate hammer. The Fed sees this inflation. They see the government spending money it doesn't have. So what do? They keep interest rates high to fight the inflation caused by the bailout. Domino 3, the dollar squeeze. High interest rates make the US dollar stronger. Strong dollar sounds good, right? Wrong! A strong dollar makes our exports more expensive for the rest of the world. So now, not only is China not buying, but suddenly Vietnam, Mexico, and Europe can't afford our corn either because the exchange rate kills them. Domino 4, the death spiral. Because our exports are too expensive, farmers sell even less, which means next year they need an even bigger bailout. Do you see the loop? Tariffs to bailout, to inflation, to strong dollar, to lower exports, to bigger bailout. We are paying $12 billion to start a fire that will cost us $50 billion to put out. And we are hitting the point of no return right now. The moment the farmers cash these checks this February, the psychology changes. The bridge becomes a lifestyle. We are creating a permanent subsidy class, just like we did with ethanol, just like we did with sugar. Once you turn that spigot on, you can never, ever turn it off without causing a total collapse.
The administration knows this. They know this money isn't a bridge, it's a ledge. And they just pushed American agriculture right off the edge of it, hoping they can build a parachute on the way down before the midterms hit. But gravity doesn't care about your polling numbers. So what does the wreckage look like when we hit the bottom? Let's talk about the fallout. So where do we go from here? If we look at the map, there are really only two roads left. Scenario A, the fantasy. This is the one they sell you on the evening news. In this version, the tariffs work. China buckles under the pressure of our economic might. Xi Jinping calls the White House, apologizes, and signs a massive purchase order for American soybeans at 20% above market value. The bridge works. Farmers pay off their debts, the trade deficit vanishes, and we all live happily ever after in a protectionist utopia. If you believe that, I have a bridge to sell you. Literally. Scenario B, the ugly truth. This is what the smart money is betting on. This is what the hedge funds in Chicago and New York are positioning for right now. In this version, the trade war drags on for years. The $12 billion runs out in 6 months. The small family farms, the guys with 500 acres, the third-generation operations, they can't survive on the handouts. The paperwork is too thick, the margins are too thin, and the debt service is too high. So they sell. But they don't sell to their neighbors. Their neighbors are broke too. They sell to the big boys. They sell to multinational conglomerates. They sell to private equity firms that view farmland not as a heritage, but as an asset class on a spreadsheet. We are looking at the greatest consolidation of American land since the Dust Bowl. Let's fast forward. Let's look at the world 5 years from now. 2030, if we stay on this track. Close your eyes and picture the heartland. The small towns, the ones with the one stoplight and the diner and the high school football team, they are ghost towns. The diners are boarded up because there are no farm families left to eat there. The fields? Oh, they are still green, but there are no people in them. You see autonomous tractors running 24/7, guided by GPS satellites, managed by a tech support team in Silicon Valley or a hedge fund manager in Connecticut. It is land feudalism. We become a nation of renters. The food supply is controlled by 3 or 4 massive corporations that own the land, the seed, the fertilizer, and the politicians who write the bailout checks. And the grocery store?
You think eggs are expensive now? Wait until there is zero competition. Wait until the supply chain is so centralized that one glitch, one bad harvest, or one geopolitical tantrum sends the price of bread to $10 a loaf. The bridge didn't lead to a better deal. It led to a corporate takeover of the American food supply. That is the destination. Okay, that's the nightmare. Now, what do you actually do about it? I'm not telling you to go build a bunker. I'm not telling you to panic. Panic is useless. Panic is what they want, so you vote for the next savior who promises another bailout. I want you to be strategic. 1, opt out of the chain. Stop relying 100% on the industrial food system. If you have space, grow something, anything. If you don't, find a local farmer, a real one. Go to the farmer's market, shake their hand, pay them cash, build a relationship with the source of your calories before the shelves go empty. Shorten your supply chain. 2, watch the real inflation. Don't look at the CPI. Look at the inputs. Watch the price of fertilizer. Watch the price of diesel. When those spike, you have exactly 6 months before food prices spike. Use that window to stock up. Buy the staples when they are cheap. It's not hoarding, it's hedging. You are running your own personal hedge fund. 3, follow the land. If you have capital, look at land. Not crypto, not NFTs, dirt. God isn't making any more of it, and the biggest players in the world are fighting over every acre. If BlackRock wants it, maybe you should hold on to it if you have it. Look, they want you to think this is just boring farm policy. They want you to tune out so they can sign the checks in the dark. But you didn't tune out. You're still here. You now know that the $12 billion isn't a rescue. It's a receipt for a broken strategy. You know the mechanism. You see the trap. And that makes you dangerous because an informed citizen is the one thing a gaslighting government cannot control. Keep your eyes open. Watch the prices, watch the land, and don't let them tell you it's raining when they're the ones peeing on your leg. Stay sharp. Stay safe. I'm out.